Well, welcome to this cozy little nook.
Yeah, very Star Wars.
Very Star Wars. It's
Mm-hmm.
on brand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're here mostly to talk about The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker. However, I would love to ask you about the first time you saw Star Wars and what that experience was like for you.
I think it was the same as it was for most people.
Yeah.
Just kind of, wow, blew my mind. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed it. I remember having a great time. I must have seen it when it first came out. So it was, what, 1977?
Mm-hmm.
I was in New York. There were lines to go see it. I waited
Yeah.
online like everyone else. I think I saw it in one of those theaters right across from Bloomingdale's on Third Avenue. It was quite a big, you know, serious movie theater that, everyone went to in the 70s. And yeah, we had a blast. I loved it.
And were you already editing at that point?
Oh no, I, you know what? I probably was, oh no, I was still in college. No,
Not quite
I
yet.
wasn't even in film then. I loved films, but
Mm-hmm.
I was at university.
Got it. I do think about this because you are a fan of the Star Wars
Mhm.
movies and how surreal it must have been to step into that world as a fan. Because it's one thing if you're not a fan and you can just approach it a little more clinically, but to be able to work on one of those movies, was it a little like surreal? Did
Well,
you
the whole
feel?
thing, honestly, in a weird way, my career has been kind of surreal like that because I, first of all, never intended to be an editor. So I went to film school. I had no idea what I was in for. And I always loved science fiction. I was always attracted to those kind of films.
Mhm.
And then when I got out of film school, I had to finish my own thesis film. And obviously, finishing film means editing it. And
Yeah.
I started editing. I got a editing room in the Brill Building, which at that time in New York was where all the big films were being cut.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Alan Pakula was there, Sidney Lumet was there, Francis Ford Coppola was there, and I got tapped to be an apprentice on Cotton Club. And there I was in the cutting room going, not a clue what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I do love to tell stories, and I think with the intention of being a director, the idea of it is, it was quite overwhelming. I had no connections to the film business. So everything was like a black hole to me
Yeah.
getting into it. And then I just happened to, when I came out to Los Angeles, that's a whole long story, but I ended up, a friend of mine called me and said, do you want to meet J.J. Abrams? He's looking for someone he's got this new show, Alias. I think you'd love it. And I was like, okay. And I met him and he hired me on the spot. We really got along well. And through him, Alias was a blast, by the way.
Yeah.
Like right up my alley. Big female action hero, very groundbreaking kind of. Every episode was like a mini action movie. Honestly, I ended up directing all the second unit and all the fight scenes and chase scenes, and it was great. It was exhausting, but it was great. And he was the one who, all of a sudden one day, it was like, I'm going to direct the next Mission Impossible. And I was like, oh my God, I grew up on Mission Impossible. Let's go. I love Mission Impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next film was, I'm going to do Star Trek. And I was like, oh my God, I grew up on Star Trek. I love Star Trek. I know every original episode.
Mhm.
I mean, I was a huge Star Trek fan. Because, it was on TV, and right when my brother and I watched it every
Yeah.
week. And so we did that. And then he, at the end of the first one, he said, you're going to hear some chit chat about me maybe doing this, reintroduction of Star Wars, but I'm not going to do it. And I was like, oh, that's a shame, because we were really on a roll here, because that would be the ultimate.
Mhm.
And so I met with Marvel I actually had agreed to do Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh my gosh.
And I was thrilled. I
Yeah.
met James Gunn and I read the script and it was very funny and he had all these ideas and I had all these ideas and it was like, so I kind of cornered myself into that action-y. I mean, I was going there anyway with no intention to go there.
Hmm.
And then I came back and JJ's like, oh, I am going to do Star Wars.
And I need you, right?
Yeah. And I was
Yes.
like, well, I just committed to Marvel. I can't. Sad for me. And he said, no. No, you have to. So I had to extricate myself from Marvel. They were not happy. They were
Mhm.
very unhappy with me, but I was thrilled. So yes, it was like I don't know how these three films, I guess I just synced up with JJ, like our, we both had the same kind of passions.
Mhm.
And so I really got lucky doing stuff I really loved. And that's not to say I wouldn't look, I'd love to do a comedy I think Star Wars is actually quite funny. And I think
Yeah,
Star
I
Trek is
agree.
quite funny.
Mhm.
And sometimes even Mission Impossible, or a love story I'm not opposed to doing any of that. It's just the way it went for me.
Mhm. Do you think that's why, as we've talked previously, and I know Ray is a particular favorite of yours?
I love Daisy Ridley.
Yeah.
She can do no wrong in my book.
I'm kind of on the same page as you. I haven't actually seen a ton of her other work. I think I've only seen her in like Murder on the Orient Express, which was fun. It was capery. But that's the very female action character, like sort of similar to Alias, and very different plot points. But
no, I think I'm very drawn to strong female action characters.
It doesn't get, I mean, she's the action hero of that movie, like undeniable, of the whole trilogy, undeniably.
The reason Daisy is so amazing, aside from she's just truly a good person, she loves what she does. I mean, it oozes out of her how much she loves it and how far she's willing to go. She's extraordinary that way. And you feel it on the screen. She just absolutely loves it. And she's not a prima donna in any way. She, I've seen her get dumped with tons of water in freezing cold weather and lips turning blue. And she's like, one more take, let's do it. And, she never, she sat with me a bunch of times, never once said, I really think, you didn't use my best take or cut to me again. Or, she was just we could talk about it. She's smart and she's learning more and more. She makes her own films with her husband and she is really an action hero. I mean, she is. So she just did a film for Disney. I just saw her like a month ago. She was here promoting The Young Woman of the Sea, which is this Disney film about Trudy Eberly, who's first woman to swim the English Channel. And it's a very old-fashioned film. It's actually really she invited me to the premiere and I went, and it's really fun. I mean, I know people aren't going to go see it because it's not about, it's not a big event film, but she is so good in it. And she actually swam in the ocean and did all that stuff. And honestly, you feel it's like when you do a film and the actor actually does the thing in real, like really, it feels, it's so much, you feel it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
we'll go see it, most likely.
Yeah. I mean, she's great.
Yeah.
You can't take your eyes off her. And the whole film's about her.
We just actually, earlier this week, rewatched Rise of Skywalker, and then yesterday and today we're rewatching Force Awakens just to have it fresh in my memory. And
I'm sure you're much more fresh than I am. I tried to watch it, but apparently I don't have Disney Plus anymore.
I'll give you my login. You're welcome to use it. There's a particular scene where she's in the forest and she's running away, and there's some First Order stormtroopers and she's shooting them. And then Kylo Ren begins to pursue her. and she's firing at him and he keeps deflecting the blasts and she's just exhausted, and he uses the force and her blaster arm snaps back and her whole body goes rigid and she's shaking because you can see she's kind of fighting it. And just what you said, like you feel like you're doing it because she's doing it. I felt like I was being grabbed by the force. It was so visceral.
She's really good at it.
She's really good at it.
She really puts her, and she's got just this really, her face is so interesting to look at, like
it's so expressive.
It's so expressive, and her eyes are so expressive, and I don't know. I love watching her on the screen.
I loved the casting. I mean, I felt she definitely stole the show, but I loved John Boyega and Oscar. It was really 10 out of 10 casting for that.
I think JJ's one of his, well, he's got so many strengths, but he's really good at casting.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the cast of Alias, come on. That's amazing. Bradley Cooper. I mean, we were all like, oh, Michael Vartan's going to be the big star. And then, not that Michael Vartan, he did go on to star in many things, but then, Bradley was just like, phew, yeah.
Amazing.
He used to come into my cutting room and sit and ask me, he would say, do you mind if I watch you cut? I really want to learn. And I'm like, yeah, so be my guest.
Yeah. And now he's directing his own movies and doing all of that. Is that common for actors to sit in and watch the editing process?
I think everyone's different, and also it depends on the director. A lot of, like, JJ did not want the actors sitting in, so I didn't, I have to do what he wants. It's his film. But for me as an editor, I like it. I don't mind it. As long as it's a respectful relationship. I mean, I always learn as much from what their intention in their acting is as,
sure.
I look at a scene and I'm like, I make up my own mind about how it's going to play, but like, it's always interesting to find out, well, I really had this in mind. I took over a film that Adam Driver was in a couple of years ago, and he called me and he said, can you please help? It was just him and a little girl. And
was that the dinosaur movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
I spent a year with Adam, and it was fascinating. I love him, and it was fascinating. Things he intended, things he was trying to go for, trying to talk him out of things, him trying to talk me into things. And it was great. We had a great time, and I'm always up for that.
Yeah, that kind of collaborative.
Sure. Why not?
Was there ever anything you felt like you needed to talk JJ out of?
Sometimes.
Anything you're willing to share?
Oh, there was especially, I think there were times. JJ is such a fan of Star Wars, and as are so many people on the film. There were times I just kind of felt like we do not have to address every fan, and he knew that. I think it was just, he was like, I can do it, but I think in the end, I really didn't have to talk him in or out of it, because he knew when it was more than needed. And, and the fans can be, they love you. They can be so supportive, and then they can be so harsh and so destructive, and, nail you for a million things, and then love you for a million things, or not love you as much as they should. It's like,
Yeah. Well, the hate that Ray got was just, shocking. Like, yeah, I remember the vitriol didn't she need to cancel her social media? It was just disgusting. A lot of the fandom feedback was awful.
Yeah. It's that's what you get when you step into something like that, though.
I suppose.
You can't take over. Star Wars is what, the most beloved film. You can't walk down the street in a city and not see somebody wearing a Star Wars shirt, right?
That's very true.
So you're just gonna, you just have to have a hard shell about those things.
Yeah.
And I think Daisy proved herself. What else? What were you going to do? Another Luke? That would have
I
been kind
know.
of
It's so
incredibly
boring.
boring.
Yep.
Not that Luke was boring. I'm just saying, like, it was done.
We've seen it before.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of that, so I have one of these questions. I wrote all of these down. Force Awakens. This is actually a fan question that someone wrote in, because I did a little announcement saying, if you were to ask a question of the editor of episodes 7 and 9, what would those questions be? And I have a few. I was going to sprinkle them in. But Sam, a friend of mine, wrote in, for episode 7, the general story is very similar to A New Hope. So how did you go about making it its own? There was always going to be a comparison, but what did you do to keep it unique? And the example he puts is like making the big deaths different for Han versus Ben, who are both the mentors of the main heroes of the movies, even though they're both being watched from a distance and both take place on the Death Star or an analog for the Death Star and different things like that.
Right.
Was that a challenge going into?
I think it was more of a script challenge, obviously. And, Lawrence Kasdan wrote the script with JJ. So, and he had also written the script for Empire, I believe. So, they were both of them versed in the Star Wars of it all. And I think it's so tricky. Like, if we had gone, in my opinion, if we had gone way different, I think the fans would have, been upset with us, perhaps a bit like episode 8, which took like another turn. And that's not to say I didn't love episode 8. I actually did. It was tricky to kind of walk that line. And given the fact that we were going to have a new cast, which I think we did a really great job introducing them, finding Rey on a planet where she's a scavenger and she has no idea she has any powers.
Sure.
The whole, I love the idea that there's a stormtrooper that goes rogue. That's kind of very different from any of the other Star Wars.
I love that.
Right. It's like fantastic. And John Boyega is so good as like that kind of like, I don't know what, where
he does bright-eyed, wide-eyed wonder. So
yeah, he was, I would say perfection in that. And the fact that they, they formed this friendship. So this bond, this friend, Luke was kind of a loner, really. Han and Chewie were friends, and Luke was kind of the loner kid who was like, give me a ride.
Yeah.
These two are in it together. They form a bond, and then they move on to, find Han, and then, and simultaneously, the John Boyega character finds Poe. So he finds these two people separately, and then brings everyone together.
Yeah.
And I think that is very different in the story. It wasn't, really. Finn is the sort of
the glue
of the whole thing, and that even though she's the star, and she's the person, the Jedi eventually, he's the person who brings everyone together. So I think that's just a very different thing, and and it's a story of friendship. And I think the reason 7 was so appealing was because he just had this incredible friendship going on, and the three of them, and BB-8, and it had also the introduction of BB-8 was gold mine. Let's be honest. It doesn't get cuter than that.
Was the pitch like, it's like R2 but a ball?
I think
he has an R2-esque.
He definitely does.
Yeah. His beeps are different.
Sure.
But it's familiar in an R2 kind of way.
JJ designed that character, and he was from the get-go just great. I remember Rian Johnson came in, and when the film was nearing the end, and he said to me, do you have any advice for me when, shooting episode 8, and I just said, when you have nothing to cut to, just cut to BB-8. It's always worked.
Crowd pleaser.
Yeah.
Do you know, was there any, filler script for BB-8? Because oftentimes Ray will respond to something. She'll go, no, or say, oh, classified, right? Yeah, me too. Big deal. And I'm wondering if Daisy had lines in her mind that she knew what BB-8 was saying to her.
I think they probably had lines, and there was some ad-libbing. I can't remember exactly now. I think it was a bit of both.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's some fabulous behind the scenes on Empire. I don't think they did it in A New Hope. It might have been something they added for the second film. But Peter Mayhew, who was in the Chewbacca suit, would talk to Han before they, cut in before they put in his sounds. Yeah. And there's behind the scenes of him on top of the Millennium Falcon. Where are you going? Gonna go to the da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And when you see it in the context of the film, it's, the Chewie noise, but it's hysterical. So I didn't know if that was something.
I think JJ probably did the off-screen lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Was there, I do remember hearing a story. It actually might have been a story I heard secondhand. I don't know if I can't remember if I asked you last time I saw you, but there's a story with you and JJ and a lightsaber.
Oh my God.
And I would love to hear that story.
Oh, that was was that on Star Trek? It was either on Star Trek or Mission Impossible. I can't remember which film, but it was pre-Star Wars.
Okay. And
we were working with, on both Mission and Star Trek, we were working with ILM. And a visual effects supervisor called Roger Guyette, who I became very good friends with. And because we worked so closely together, and we really did, what was great about all those projects where we really did figure stuff out. Because a lot of green screen stuff, you're like, okay, what could it be? Oh, and so, I can't remember, I was up at Lucasfilm or something, and they had a store there, and my son at the time, who was I don't know, 8 or 9, loved lightsabers, and he really wanted a lightsaber. And I saw these lightsabers, and so I said to Roger, should you get me one? I'll pay for it. And he was like, no, I'll just get you one. Comes down, I'm in my cutting room at Paramount, and brings me this lightsaber. It's Luke's lightsaber, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I pick it up, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. It literally, when you pick one up, you're like, I feel powerful. Yeah. This is power. And I'm sitting in my chair, and I'm not getting up, and JJ walks in, and he looks at me, and he's like, oh my God, Marianne, what's happening here? And I was like, no, you don't understand. All you have to do is touch this thing. It's like magic. And I handed it to him, and he's like, oh, no, it's really cool. And he goes out down the hallway, and I never saw the lights.
Never to be seen again.
And Roger was like, no worries. And he then brought me 4 of them. So I eventually got every color.
You had the last laugh.
Well, it was just I'm not taking it back from JJ. He can have it. And Roger was like, doesn't matter. We'll get you some more.
That is pretty funny.
And then my kids proceeded to after a while, I was like, you guys can't play with these because they'll break.
Yeah.
They're mine.
We have some of the ones from Disneyland. Nick has the Luke's first saber. That was Anakin's saber that then Rey has. And then I have Ahsoka, who has 2. She's got a shorter one and a longer one. And we don't really do much with them. We're going to display them at some point. But one of my goals at some point is to find someone who will teach me lightsaber.
Oh yeah, well,
fighting.
There's a whole slew of stunt people who have lightsaber expertise. Yep. I'm not one of them, although I'm not bad with a lightsaber. I have a lot of visual learning.
I just want to do the Hayden Christensen flip, because he'll do the it's very cool. Yeah, I have not mastered that.
No, you can.
Are there any other props, or I don't know if you're allowed to answer this, but from any set, Star Wars or otherwise, that you were able to abscond with or was gifted to you? Perhaps?
Well, I wouldn't really ever take a prop because, then somebody else might get in trouble. and that's the last thing
Fair.
I would ever want. But I have a little BB-8 that Brian Burke gave me. He was the producer on Seven,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a little remote one that you can, I think you can buy them, but he's very cute, and he's like that. And what else do I have? The lightsabers. I have the script, both
Right.
scripts.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I do have very much else. Yeah, that's about it.
There's a great interview with Pedro Pascal, and he's talking to someone from Lego, and they're unveiling the new Mandalorian Lego set. And everything was a prototype. They weren't selling them yet. So they had little Mandalorian, they had little Grogu, they had all the different pieces. And they are, talking to everyone. They turn around and the Mandalorian is gone.
Oh my
It's
God.
gone. And, the Lego guy is talking to Pedro and he says, yeah, and we were looking everywhere for it. And Pedro goes, he said it was little and it was me. So I took it.
Nice.
That's a good argument to make. It was me. So
Hey, look, I'm sure they were happy for him to have it.
I'm sure they were happy for him to have it. I think
Yeah.
I have a couple now with my many different
Right.
Lego pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a bunch of Star Wars Lego that I years ago got my son. And we think we have a Millennium Falcon and we have a Rebel ship. I think we have a bunch of them at home as well. Yeah.
The TIE Interceptor was a birthday gift from my dad, and I opened it in front of the rest of the family and was really embarrassingly excited. Just like stood up and jumped up and my husband was like, you didn't get this excited about anything that I got you.
Right.
Like, but that's a TIE Interceptor.
I know. It's
so
fantastic.
Cool.
It's so good.
It is very good.
Yeah. This one's very good too. I like the Rebel helmet.
That one actually Violet put together, and all of the helmets are, I think, 18 plus is the age range that you should. Yeah, because they're very complicated. She put that together a couple years ago, so she would have been 11.
Wow.
And I remember, and I'm going to ask her if she wants me to cut this because she might be embarrassed, but she ended up crying. She got so frustrated. And we just had the talk of, it's for 18 plus, it's okay that it's very hard. Like there's nothing wrong with you. It's very hard. Fast forward to about 6 months ago, one of the cats jumped. These used to be in the living room, and one of the cats jumped off and knocked a few of them over. Now, luckily, all of the instruction kits are online. We were able to recover all of the pieces. The Scout Trooper I was able to put together easily. And then when I got to the part where I was putting the same part that got her, I wanted to throw it at the wall. It was like, I'm significantly older than 18 and I want to cry. It was very difficult to do.
It looks it. I like it though.
I do too. It was fun. I love the shot of Rey when she's eating her puff
and she puts
bread.
the helmet on. Isn't that lovely?
It's so
It's
sweet.
such a good moment where she's just like,
yeah.
I mean, that's what makes, I think, Seven so unique is that there's like, and JJ's so good at this, just human moments in films that you just don't expect, like these just big films, and then there's a human moment that's so tiny and so perfect.
Yeah, they're one of my favorite. I know I told you this, but in my head canon, Poe and Finn are romantically involved. And it's just because, and we just rewatched it, and I pointed at the screen and looked at my husband and I'm like, see? And it's when they reunite and they're so, oh, you're not dead. Oh, you're not dead. And he goes, that's my jacket. Oh, do you want it back?
No,
keep it. It suits you. Just such a tender.
I know, it's a very, very bro moment. Yeah.
It's a very sweet moment. But then they set up different potential romantic interests for either of them. So there go my dreams.
Yeah, I don't really have an answer for you. Who's romantically? I don't think romance, there's a lot of romance in...
There's not a ton.
In Star Wars.
I do. This is something I did not ask you, but I'm curious. What was your feeling when you were reading the script and you got to the part where Kylo Ren, or not Kylo Ren at that point, Ben Solo and Rey kiss? Were you a fan of the kiss? Were you not?
Well, that was forever the question in the cutting room.
Mm-hmm.
We had many different versions of it.
Can you share which side of the?
I always felt like if we could make the kiss work, it would be great. I'm not. I'm. I wanted it to work. I really wanted it to work, and that was my feeling about it. So I worked very hard at it. I think it was a lot. It might have been an overreach. I'm not sure.
My take, I love it. I
Oh,
love
good. Oh my
it.
God. Thank God.
My husband does not. It's one of the few things that we in Star Wars
Okay.
just like.
So to be all I wanted it to work so badly, and I was so for it. I never, ever for 1 second wanted it to go the other way. So
Good.
I fought my ass off for it.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Yes.
That whole, from the second after she force heals him and she says, I wanted to take your hand, Ben's hand.
Right.
And then he goes and there's the moment he looks straight into the camera and you realize that is a different character. That's how good Adam Driver is.
Oh, Adam's.
You're like, that's the same face, but that's a different face.
Right.
Like we've never seen Ben Solo before.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Ben.
He became Ben. That's why I wanted it to work so hard.
I mean, I got chills. And it was such a wonderful.
Oh, I'm so glad. Because I'm whenever anyone had asked me that question, that's why
you were hedging.
I'm hedging on the fence because I don't want to, I feel like Star Wars is for the people and they need to feel the way they feel, not how I feel. But
sure.
I desperately felt they should kiss because I felt like she was meant to be with Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Ben, not
Kylo.
Kylo. And all the time Kylo was Kylo, there was always a slight Ben in him that was like the person she wanted to be with. And like in 7, when he's trying to read her mind and she's in the chair and he's like, you're on an island, you're lonely, I can see it all. There's like this performance in him that there's partly he's sympathetic with her.
Yeah.
And I always felt like at the end of the day, they deserved a kiss.
It's so heartbreaking that's the one, and then he's gone.
I know, and that's the other thing. I thought, oh my God, it's heartbreaking. And they get a moment and they're gone. It's like Romeo and Juliet. They get a moment and then it's gone. And it's gone. I mean, obviously it's not Romeo and Juliet, but like the two houses,
yes,
came together for a second. And then, so yes, that was all my rationale for it. I love it. And I really worked hard to get the best version I could get. And I believe it works, but
it worked for me.
Good. And I knew that it would work for some and not for all.
That's how everything is though.
Yeah. Everything.
Yeah.
So it's probably, I'm not saying it wouldn't have been in there if I hadn't fought so hard for it, but I think I really helped make them make up their mind.
The champion of the kiss.
I was a huge champion of the kiss.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
What about another part of episode 9 that I had a tough time was Finn is very clearly coming into his force sensitiveness. He senses when she dies. He senses what Star Destroyer, the thing that they have to, I can't remember what it is, but the navigator, whatever thing they have to destroy. He knows which destroyer it's on. All these different things. And then it's just never addressed. And it makes me feel, and I wonder if that was a conscious choice or
he was definitely strong with the force and he was definitely coming into it. And there's just a lot going on. And I think it was just one of the things that, maybe for the next one.
Yeah. That actually it's another question that was written in is sort of about this from Kevin. Says, in Rise of Skywalker, it felt like a ton of stuff happened all in one movie. It seems like a huge task for an editor to put together a story, like that. So how did you approach it? Like, basically, it sounds like it was a ton of stuff and you were said, we were trying to, you have a time limit.
Yeah, we were trying to get as much story that made sense. And, like a lot of films, I mean, look, I haven't worked on every film. I don't know, but you know, you go off in a direction here or there, and if you hit a wall sometimes, and you come back and you try
Mhm.
it on, and things change, especially with visual effects movies, because you can change the visual effect or you know change the lines, and so uh, yeah, it's a lot of story, and sometimes when you have a lot of story, the beauty of the original Star Wars is it's so simple.
Mhm.
It's really simple,
Yeah.
and these got more complicated because they had to. And so you kind of end up chipping away at it and finding the most, simplifying it to the most easy to track story that you can.
Mhm.
And yeah, there was a lot in nine. There was a lot. And we ended up just kind of shaving some of it away. And I have this theory about films anyway. I think that they're, you know, three quarters um, skill and intent and one quarter magic. And you can't, the magic is something that just happens. Like, why a scene that you think in your mind should work really well and should be fantastic and fascinating falls flat on its face.
Sure.
And then a scene you're like is a nothing scene suddenly becomes like, oh my God,
The pivotal.
yeah, it's brilliant, you know. And um yeah, it's hard to say, but you know, I that's my job, is to try and make the best simplest story, and you know, find the best performances or the performances that enhance that. And yeah.
Well, and so much of that also is when it comes out, like what's going on in the world, what people are going to be receptive to, what people not might not be as receptive to.
Sure. Sure. I mean right now there's seems to be so few movies in the movie theaters, and it's a
Hmm.
shame because I feel like people are just getting, I mean, we're inundated with streaming, like to the point, even for me, and I'm a consumer of visual, you know, medium, and there are
Hmm.
days I'm like, I just don't want to look at anything right
Yes.
now because it's a lot,
Yeah.
you know, and it doesn't. It's I don't know. I just remember, you know, for me, movies were like magic, like going to the theater and sitting down, and it was just so. And then pandemic seemed to rob us of that
Hmm.
in a very sad way.
It was tough.
And I don't know. I hope it gets back. I hope we get back to it.
I do. We've been appreciating going to the movies more. And we were a movie family prior to the pandemic. But the first movie we saw back in the theaters was Fast and Furious 9. It was July 2021. And my cousin was in town. She'd never seen a single Fast and Furious movie. I was only a recent convert because
Hmm.
that was one of my pandemic watches was
Right.
I'll watch all of them. I'd never seen a single one. And when we were deciding what is our first movie back in a theater, I went, I want to see an action movie. I want to see things that blow up. I want to see car crashes. And it was like, well, Fast Nine,
Yeah.
Fast and
Right.
Furious 9 is
Exactly. I want to
perfect. It's
see
like,
big.
excellent. Not my typical
No.
favorite type of movie, but that was what I needed at that moment.
I just think if you have a good, you know, fun story, fun people to watch,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what Star Wars captured, right? It was like great characters, great actors, really fun story, like your classic save the
Sure.
universe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just even a great tagline in a galaxy far, far away. I mean, it's such a one. You had me there. The
Yeah.
minute I read that, I'm like, okay, I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen?
I love it. I have been speaking with Paul Hirsch, who he told me to tell you hello, by
Oh,
the way.
and tell him the
I
same.
will. And I've been reading his book, and I am hoping to speak with him for the podcast as well. But he said that the edition of the A Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far, Far Away was made later. And it was partially because George Lucas wanted to distance Star Wars from the term sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
And sci-fi is usually futuristic. So he was thinking, this is a space fantasy. I don't want to follow the rules of physics or science. I want to do things that work. I want there to be fire in space. I want there to be sound in space. And so I thought that was an interesting logic behind why is it a long time ago?
That's really clever.
Yeah,
I think
thought
it
that
is
was
clever.
nice.
It was very effective. I will say that.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've been following any of the new TV show Acolyte.
I told you I don't have my Disney. I no longer have Disney Plus.
But there's been such a brouhaha about it. And the first episode, there's a little bit of fire in space, and people are freaking out. There was fire in space in Return of the Jedi. There's shrapnel in space in Revenge of the. Like, there's so much precedent for you have to get over it. You have to get over it.
On Star Trek, we tried no sound in space, and it was not good.
I would imagine it would be not really well in,
you have score on movies. I mean, we're not sitting here. There's not music pumping in telling me your emotions. Movies are movies. They're, the sound and sound effects are they're part of it. They're part of what makes it real.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it would be crazy for me to say, expect that you think I'm showing you what it's really like to be out in space. I know there's all this attempt to, but I don't know if that makes it especially fun.
Sure. I don't think so either. And someone on some YouTube show made a really good point, and they said, everyone got out into space for a battle and decided to agree on which way is up in zero gravity. Like, oh my gosh,
well,
that's right.
There's so,
and they weren't saying it as a complaint. They were more saying it as this is not true science fiction. This is a fantasy, and that's okay. And people have to get over their little.
Oh, I remember that. I did a film called Passengers, where Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence are on a spaceship, and the writer kept trying to explain to me that the ship had to keep turning this way to move it forward, and I literally was like, I don't care.
Is the audience going to care?
I don't know. But he was trying to explain the whole design of the ship to me and why it was like going this way. And that's why you see in these modern, a lot of sci-fi science fiction films, that the thing is always going around, because I guess it has to go around to propel it forward, because there's no drag in space, or I have no idea. I wasn't a science major.
No, that's funny you say no drag in space. There's the silly little tan droids from the prequels that go Roger, Roger.
Mm-hmm.
There's a episode in one of the TV shows, one of the animated shows, where one of them goes, "We're experiencing some drag," and the other one goes, "In the vacuum of space." And there's a Jedi holding onto the back of the
ship.
I
see. Yeah, who's holding it? That's funny.
It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Now might be a good time to take a break. We're going to take a little break, and we will be right back.
Okay.
Droid maintenance got you down?
Droid no fix. The broken.
Does your protocol droid lose power?
Droid go black.
Does your astromech have a bad motivator?
Droid go boom.
There's only one guy to call.
Easily. Babu Frik.
Babu's got you covered.
Fix. No problem.
He'll wipe your droid's memory.
Babu Frik.
He'll repair your restraining bolts.
Babu Frik. What do you need?
Whatever it is, he's the Italian for the job.
Come on down. Babu Frik.
In the Thieves' Quarter on Kijimi.
No cost much.
Rates are non-negotiable.
Give me money.
Who are you going to call?
I am here for you.
It's Babu. He's here for you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Welcome back to Tea Time on Tatooine. I'm here with my guest, Marianne. I do have a few more questions for you as a fan. Here's one more as a filmmaker. There were a ton of cameos in in all of the sequel movies. There's Daniel Craig is in one of the stormtrooper outfits.
Yep.
Which was your favorite of the kind of hidden secret cameos? Which one kind of tickled you the most?
I'm trying to remember who else was in the. Well, there was Stephen Colbert was in a red. Oh, he was in 9. He was one of the red guys on the.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
One of the red
On the
guys?
destroyer ship. I think it's the scene where I'm trying to remember exactly, but he is in a red helmet. Michael G. Kino's in a red stormtrooper outfit. He's in the battle on the top of the destroyer in 9. Of course, Daniel Craig, famously in the.
And I'll drop my weapon.
I don't know. It's all fun. I mean, they're stormtroopers. At one point, when we were doing 7 reshoots, somebody came to me and said, "Do you want to be a stormtrooper?" And I was like, "No. Why would I want to be a stormtrooper? No one's going to see me."
But you'll know.
I know, but I was busy. No, I didn't want to wear I didn't want to wear a plastic suit for all day long, waiting to be shot. Sorry.
Okay.
Who else was in it? I'm trying to remember. I mean, we had so many people visiting the set, and it was a very popular set.
I'm sure.
I remember at one point my father-in-law was there with his wife, and he was standing next to Daniel Radcliffe, and my niece, who was young at the time, who was a huge Harry Potter fan, was just so upset because she was like, "Why does Grandpa get to stand next to Harry Potter?" Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I think Daniel Craig had the biggest part for a cameo, and that was quite fun
and quite memorable
and very memorable. And also we used his voice, so that was a little kind of a bonus.
Speaking of the voice, I was going to ask this earlier, and then I got distracted. But John Boyega he's a British person, does not speak with an American accent. Daisy Ridley was able to speak with her accent. And in the older movies, oftentimes the bad guys have the British accent.
Right.
That's sort of it's a little an old-fashioned Bondian trope, I guess. But do you know, and you might not know the answer, why he was made to speak with an American accent? Because it just seemed like there was no rhyme or reason to it. Like Daisy got to speak with the British accent. The other stormtrooper he meets, I think in 9, has a British accent.
I honestly, I don't know. I mean, that was just this. Maybe John made the decision. He might have wanted to. I mean, he might have wanted to distinguish himself from Daisy, and so that they don't become, English buddies, or
I mean, he nails it. There's never.
No, he's great at it. But I think I'm trying to think who else spoke with an English accent. I guess Richard E. Grant did.
Donald Gleason.
He spoke with not an English accent.
No, but he says first order.
First order. Maybe he was doing. Maybe he might have just been doing a proper English. I don't know. He had He had some act. He was doing something. I don't know. I don't know who made the decision about accents.
Yeah. It's usually, I mean, I won't say it bothered me, but it was definitely something I was curious about. Like, she got to keep hers. Why didn't he get to keep his?
It honestly might have been his call.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was the first thing I remember seeing him in, so I did not know that he was not American until I saw premiere, press footage, and just went, that's what you sound like?
I know. That often happens, though. Isn't that funny?
Yep. That is pretty funny. If you could, this is a me question for you. If you could visit any planet in the Star Wars universe, which one would you choose, and what would you do there?
Oh my God. Which one would I choose in the Star Wars? Well, I don't think I would choose any of the desert planets because they're too hot and too sandy.
Mhm.
Don't think I would choose Hoth because it's too cold. So I'd probably want something in the Ewok,
Endor.
Endor kind of nice, green, lush,
Good for hiking.
good for hiking, nice temperature. Yeah, it would be, Mount Maz's planet was nice.
Yes. Yes. Because we just rewatched that. I love Ray's line. I didn't know there could be
So much
so
green.
much green because she's just been surrounded by all that sand.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess that planet could be good too.
That planet could be good. And Maz's watering hole seems like a fun place to
Yeah, that was
hang
good fun.
out.
That was
Yeah.
fun.
That is a good one. One more what if question. If you could have any force power in real life, what would it be?
Oh man. Well, everyone's different with the Force, right?
Everyone's different.
So you have, I love this sort of idea that you could just make someone do it. You like put down your weapon.
Yes.
I like that. I think I'd like that one.
The Jedi mind trick.
The Jedi
Okay.
mind. Yeah.
All right.
You don't see these droids.
Yep. You don't. I like that.
Yeah.
I think my answer changes daily. Like sometimes it's just nice the idea of I want something over there.
And
I
then
can
just
pull it over here. That's great.
Yeah.
But sometimes the mind trick I feel like can
Well,
be
the
very
mind
helpful.
thing is nice because it's so effortless. It's just like, this is a better way. So let's just do it this way. Like it's so quiet.
Don't ask questions.
Right.
That's fine.
I like it. It could help me with my tennis game.
Yeah.
You know,
Tell them to miss a
you'll
serve.
miss this ball.
Yes. Hit it into the
Go
net
ahead.
this time. I do have one more fan question from Bree, who wrote in on Instagram. She says, "Hi, Marianne. Did you cut the trailer for The Force Awakens? For me, the reaction to the trailer was my first exposure to the real nasty side of the fandom and just how hateful they can be. Did you have any idea it would elicit that kind of blowback? How did you react to that? Star Wars is my favorite franchise of all time, and it just makes me so sad that people can be awful about something so special."
I couldn't agree with her more that people would even be awful about something so special, because why would they, if they don't like it, no one's forcing them to watch it.
I know.
Like, don't watch it.
Just go home.
Right. Not your thing, not your thing. So I totally agree with that. I don't cut the trailers because I'm busy cutting the film, and
Mhm.
trailer editing is like a whole other line of work.
Sure.
You know, it has more to do with marketing, and you know, it's not always the truest form, but it has its own thing. But I often make suggestions for to use certain shots that I think will be good, or certain order of, like, if I'll see a trailer before it goes out, and then maybe make a few suggestions about changing the order of things, or
Maybe
swapping
there's
out.
a reveal that you don't want revealed.
Right,
so
or
you-
just that
yeah.
it's not as exciting. There's a more exciting shot to use that maybe
Mhm.
they missed or didn't think of. And I don't actually remember the trailer for Force Awakens. What was it?
The first part I remember was John Boyega, him like popping his head up from the
Oh,
desert
right.
without his helmet on, right after they'd crashed,
Right.
and people lost it. I think it might have been my first
Right.
exposure to the real, because I grew up with, I was a little, when the prequels came out, I was a little too cool for them.
Mm-hmm.
I've now grown to appreciate them. But the trash talk we would do of the prequels I don't remember them ever getting so vitriolic. And you can't have a black stormtrooper.
Oh, no, of course you can.
Just so nasty. And why is there?
Of course you can have a black stormtrooper. You can have any kind of
have any kind of
stormtrooper.
stormtrooper.
Any creature could be under there.
Yep.
That's the whole point.
Yep.
And the reason they wear helmets is to equalize them and make them nobodies.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole point is you don't want someone under that helmet looking like everyone else under the helmet.
Mm-hmm.
You want them all to look
Well,
different.
that's what they had for the clone army, and then they determined that they want to go in a different direction. So that's specifically what they did not want anymore. Was
Exactly.
Yeah.
Isn't that the point?
Yep.
I mean, it always was to me, but what do I know? Yes, I do remember that in the trailer being really good fun.
Yep. And Han and Chewie poking their heads around the corner. It was
Oh, that's my literally my favorite moment
it's so wonderful.
when he comes out and goes, Chewie, we're home.
Just, I mean, it was fan service, but it was the best kind of fan service.
Well, is it? I mean, yes, okay, it is fan service, but it also is, that's the story.
Yeah.
They lost the Falcon.
Mm-hmm.
They were still together. They'd gone on to this other career as smugglers. He was always a smuggler.
Mm-hmm.
He went back to smuggling.
Yeah. He experienced a horrible loss and went back to what he knew.
Exactly. Yeah. And then he, fate brings him back to his ship. I mean, that's a great story to me.
It is.
It's not.
I don't say fan service in a bad way. It's more.
But
yeah, maybe that was the wrong term to use.
No, but I'm just saying, like, it is. Again, there is a fine line because you have to stay in the world. You want to stay in the world of Star Wars. You want to use its strengths, and you want to be also original.
Sure.
And I think for 7, there was enough. There was quite a bit of originality and characters that the success to me of JJ's and Larry Kasdan's script was that they wrote these friendships, and then John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, and Daisy Ridley pulled it off. It could have gone south any of those times, and it didn't. It really worked. There was real chemistry. And it's a buddy film.
It is. That's very true. And I never really thought of Luke as being a loner, but now that you say that, right after the beginning of the second movie, he kind of F's off to Swamp Planet to be alone.
He's a total loner.
However long. Yeah. And he's with Yoda, but I mean, he's being taught how to meditate.
No, Luke's a loner. And that works in that story, in those stories.
Mm-hmm.
He can't, for him, it's not a buddy film, Yeah, he finds his, spoiler alert, his sister. No.
I don't think anyone that would be listening to this would not know this.
Right. I mean, those 3 movies is about him finding his family. Mm-hmm. And you can't do that. Wouldn't work in a buddy film. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, it wouldn't work for him to have gone off with Han and been his buddy and then found his family. He had to do it alone. Mm-hmm. So that's, and 7 wasn't that. And then 9 was more about, her discovering the dark side of her family.
Yeah. And facing that potential in herself.
Mm-hmm. And that was, I thought, a really interesting premise.
Well, because it could have gone, and I knew it wouldn't at the end of the day, but it could have gone that Rey becomes Darth Rey and takes Kylo Ren's hand, and they sit the throne as still a dyad in the Force, but the evil ones.
Sure.
It's very, and I think pretty much everyone probably knew that's not how it was actually going to end, but I think the movie did a good job of teasing that as a potential, like.
It sure could. It definitely could have, and it could have gone. I love the scene in 9 where she fights herself in the cave, the Dark Rey. I mean, so she loved it too, by the way. She was like, I love being Dark Rey.
With the scary pointy teeth.
Yeah. I mean, it was fantastic and scary. And I thought, sure, you could have ended with Dark Rey and that's not really Star Wars, though.
No. I'm glad they didn't. It
you
would
have had to have another
weird departure.
Right.
Yeah.
You would have had to have another. I mean, look, I've heard that they're working on the new one.
Which I very much, to the earlier point, I hope they bring Finn in as a Jedi.
Yeah, I hope so too.
That would be.
They might.
Yeah.
I mean, canvas is wide open.
Canvas is wide open. I have high hopes. I really hope that gets made. There's so much.
There's so much to explore, and there's such the thing is that if I hope so too, because I think the unlike Marvel, which has a universe of characters that are what they are and you know them from the comics. Star Wars just has, I mean, you can introduce new characters, you can make up new characters, you can bring in characters, you can weave them in, it's all familial lines that you can trace and who belongs to who and secret children that you didn't know about, or, there's just so much you can do.
Yep.
And I kind of love that about it, that its origin is in the film as opposed to a comic book. And not that I don't love the comic book films, and I have loved them, and but I love that the origin is a film, and those characters originated in a film, and that film is now just lives on,
spawning all of these. That is something that I think for especially the Skywalker saga, those 9 movies, they have to follow that thread. I mean, it's in the name of the thing. It's got to be about a Skywalker in some form or fashion.
Right.
But because it's such a huge universe, and now they've unlocked the time before the prequels. I mean, hundreds of years prior to the prequels, we have that, new show that just came out, and they can just do whatever. And they can say there are other groups that wield the Force in different ways, and they call it different things, and they're not Jedi. There's more outside of the Jedi, and maybe the Jedi aren't so great. And I like that we have options to see those different points of views. I don't think the 9 movies would be the place to put those, but
the spin-offs,
yeah, the spin-offs, it's fun to see that.
It's interesting. I mean, it does. It is an interesting premise, because you have it's nice to have the world and then to build on that. It's world building. Like it's nice to have the basis and then going out from there.
Yeah.
And I think that's why so many of the Star Wars TV shows and spin are so successful. People just like those characters.
Yeah.
And they're basically, they're pretty based in, good and evil. And that's what fairy tales are.
I want to share my last gripe with 9.
Okay.
And I think you will agree with me. They are so mean to C-3PO. They are so
they are really
rude to him. And he has willingly accepted his fate, that he is going to have his memory wiped, his decades of loyalty and friendship and adventure and all of this. And he's taking the time to look around, and Poe goes, "What you doing?" And he's like, "Taking one last look at my friends." It's like, give him his moment. Put some respect on his name. He is your elder. He is an original rebel. Come on.
I know.
That was,
yeah. I think that was the joke with him, was that he always was the, afraid person, and I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny.
It was pretty funny, but they're just so, the second we need you to talk, normally you won't shut up, and now you won't say the.
I know that he couldn't say it.
No,
he's programming.
It just I mean, Han's not very nice to him either. So I guess there's
nobody's
precedent.
ever really nice to him at all, except R2.
Yeah, and even R2. I mean, the two of them are
they fight with it,
bickering, but 3PO's not. Very
I think
nice
his
to
whole
either.
character is based on that. He's very annoying.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's very prissy. Well, before I let you go, I know we're kind of coming up on time. Any closing thoughts on Star Wars, the franchise, the future of it?
No, I mean, I'm looking forward to the next one. I'm hoping they bring back my favorite characters, Rey and Finn and Poe. And no, it's really, quite honestly, I'm very lucky to have been able to work on those films. It was a real pleasure and a shit ton of work, I will say.
Only imagine. Especially with 9, when you go, what do I have to put all of this into 2 hours or 2.5 hours or however long?
There's just a lot. There's a lot. And, everyone involved in those films was just really into it. It was great. It was really
That's so nice to
have
hear.
a crew that is so on board. So it was a great work experience. It was really a fantastic experience.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining.
Well, thank you for having me.